Tweeted it.
Welcome, fight fans, to another episode of Before the Bald Man Speaks. I'm your host, as always, Andrew the Clown Kid Lawrence. You can check me out on Twitter at the Clown Kid at any time. Broadcasting live and direct after UFC Fight Night 73 from Nashville, Tennessee, featuring a main event between Glover Teixeira against Aubin St. Preux. Aubin St. Preux coming up short on his homecoming kind of fight. I say kind of fight because it seemed like he kind of fought about a round and a half of that fight until he gave up to Glover Teixeira's wrestling-based attack. But to break down this whole fight card with me and help me out through this whole episode, you might know him as a co-host on CageCast podcast with Joey G Sports. My guest this evening is Nate Miller. Nate, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing excellent, sir. How are you?
I'm not sure about excellent. I will say I'm doing good, but in no part does that have to do with how the fights were this evening.
Well, I made some money, so I'm not as upset as some people would be. And, it wasn't a pay-per-view. We didn't pay for it. Free MMA is always enjoyable. But it could have been better. There was one fight I'm sure we'll get to that I'm not exactly happy with.
Oh, well, there was more than one fight. A card like today really makes me realize that, it's a sacrifice occasionally watching these preliminary fights. At 6:30 this afternoon, the sun was shining, and it was a beautiful 80-degree day here in New York City. Outside my window, I watched lovely couples jogging and people with dogs and hobbies and lives, and I was a little bit jealous. I'll be honest with you. So,
Yeah, I wasn't that upset about it. I thought it was not terrible. We've had a lot worse.
somewhere around watching Dustin Ortiz grind the shit out of poor Willie Gates, I was like, this could have gone in the DVR. I could have at least chopped up the commercial section of this.
I actually saved $1 on that one. I was going to throw 1 unit on it, and Dimes closed the lines early, and so I was going to have Ortiz by decision, and then oh man, I'm so glad that didn't go through because that was a wipeout.
Because that's a bet you should win, even though
Mm-hmm.
you don't win it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go top to bottom in this card because some things actually did happen. Like I said, Glover Teixeira kind of ran through OSP after some rocky situations in the first. OSP, kind of the story's out now on him. The Achilles heel's wrestling. It has not been patched up. He will continue to struggle with anyone with any kind of takedown ability. Have we reached the ceiling? Is 5'6" the ceiling for OSP? Does he learn a little bit more?
I think he's still young. I think he can learn more and improve. It's not over for him. He's a great talent. We learned he hits hard. Well, we already knew he hit hard, but I'm not overly shocked tonight. The vast majority of people were on OSP, and I'm one of the few. I wasn't on Glover. I know my buddy Y2 Casey was, so shout out to him. He actually did make 2 plays with Glover. But I did pick Glover. I was very confident on Cage Cash. I said he was the better wrestler. I said he had better jiu-jitsu, and that proved to be the biggest factor in the fight.
Yeah, kind of led the whole way. A couple shaky moments there, and OSP definitely capitalized early in the fight, but it looked like Glover just only wanted to wrestle and was gonna just cruise from there. Glover Teixeira, does he have a shot at? There's a weird opportunity right now for 205ers to kind of slide into a title shot that they really probably wouldn't get again. It's all the people who lost to John Jones kind of have their second at bat against DC. Do you think that Glover will make it in time before John Jones returns and get his title shot?
Well, I can't say that with any confidence because I don't know when John Jones returns or if he will at all. I assume he will. Obviously, it seems like he would. Oh, cheers, sir. But
Cheers.
I mean, we saw it with Anderson Silva and GSP. When those dominant champions go away, the weight class is wide open. It's really fun. Not so much at 205 right now at DC. I mean, Gustafson's coming off a loss; he's getting a title shot, but that means Glover could get another shot.
Yeah, I mean, but speculate with me a moment here, man. Okay, so Glover makes this victory. He's in the 4-5 range. There's the Gustafson versus DC shot, and then what? We have the Bader Rashad Evans fight happening right now. All I think you really need to happen is for there to be, a lack of an impressive finish in that fight, and all of a sudden Glover gets to fight, the winner of that fight for the number one contender spot, particularly if DC takes the victory against Gustafsson and is just like a little banged up. So all we really need is about 9 more months of John Jones out of the UFC, and Glover Teixeira gets a legit shot at becoming the UFC light heavyweight champion.
See, I know I'm in the minority. I actually want to see Ryan Bader get a title shot. He's fresh. He's new. I know he already lost to John Jones, but John Jones isn't there anymore. And he has beef with the champion. Him and DC won't shut up. I mean, today he was even smack-talking Rashad, saying that he showed that old picture of him, saying, oh, you look like DC now, saying he's all fat. I mean, Ryan Bader, he's finally started to talk. It took him long enough to get a personality, but it looked like one grew. He's there. He's not horrible. He's a wrestler. DC's a wrestler. I mean, if Bader does get through Rashad, that's what I'd like to see. But hell, even if Rashad, either way, I'd like to see the winner of that get another title shot. Besides that, 205 is not really there anymore. It's not the Shark Tank it once was.
Yeah, 205's taken the hit of John Jones being the buzzsaw to it. I was enjoying 205 kind of when John Jones was like the dominant champion that was beating people up. I don't like DC so much as the champion in 205. It seems just like everything just seems like it's fake now without John Jones really fighting it in the 205-pound division. I'll agree with you, though, and say that I like Ryan Bader and that I like his new personality, and I'd like to see him get a title shot. Kudos to MMA having the most entertaining thing happen, and then may not be on the television screen, but rather on Twitter. And we all got to see fat Rashad Evans. But ultimately, I think Ryan Bader really needs that one big profile win. I think the lasting sting of getting kicked in the it wasn't kicked in the face by Lyoto Machida. That would have been too grand and too big to recover from. It was just the jab. The jab KO against Lyoto Machida just still rings bells with casual fans, and no one believes Ryan Bader.
Well, I think that was a straight left, if I remember correctly, and Ryan ran into it. I actually watched. I was an old fisherman in Alaska, and that was one of the very few fights I got to stream while in the middle of bumfuck in the middle of the ocean. And so I enjoyed. That was the Shogun Barra card, and also had a whole bunch of light heavyweight contenders on there.
Run that one back. You watched Lyoto Machida beat Ryan Bader on a fishing boat in the Alaskan Ocean? All
right, so for 4 years, I was a fisherman in Alaska. I was a commercial salmon fisherman, and MMA was my passion. And I had a podcast going at the time, and I had to give that up. And I went up fishing up on the inside in the southeast, which is over by Sitka and in between Ketchikan, Anchorage, all those places.
For all the people who know Alaskan geography,
yeah, whatever. Look it up. It's fascinating. But basically, I get better cell phone reception at the time on my iPhone 3G than I do now here in Washington State in my home in the middle of nowhere. And so there was this spot up where I could fish, where I could buck about 4 or 5 hours, depending on the weather, and we could throw it on anchor for the night. And I could take my iPhone 3G and use it as a router and hook it into the ship's computer and stream fights, or I should say pay the pay-per-view. That's what I meant to say. Buy the pay-per-view.
Listen, if you're watching off an Alaskan fishing vessel, you should get free UFC pay-per-view. That is a flaw in the business of the UFC's business model.
No jury would convict me.
No. You're probably like in international waters, maybe.
I think there you go. There's no rules out there. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah, depending on how far you were from an Aleutian island, you may have been in some sort of vague jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so some other things happened in the card. Michael Johnson lost a questionable decision to Beneil Dariush. I was about to just say Michael Johnson won a fight against Beneil Dariush, but that's what happened and then didn't happen. So 2 judges scored this fight 29-28. The majority of people I saw on Twitter and in the media scored this one 29, rounds 1 and 2 for Michael, and the third for Beneil. Robbery, in your opinion, Nate?
I say robbery because it's money out of my pocket. That's why I was robbed. Maybe Michael Johnson wasn't robbed. I had a great night, don't get me wrong. I mean, last week for UFC, whatever it was, 190 with Ronda Rousey, I won 13.65 units. I had a great night. I wanted to beat that today. I would have gone 4-1 for like plus 13.75. So I would have beat that. And with the Michael Johnson robbery, I only won like plus 9.19. And so I went 3-2. And it's just it's it's not bad, but it still pisses me off. It would have been nice, but yeah, I was upset. I'm sure my followers know I was upset. They saw my timeline. I retweeted enough hate mail, which is awkward for me because Hotmail Cordell follows me and we get along. And like that's the worst part. I don't even think he speaks English that well. I think whoever uses his account does, because whoever uses that account sent out a message saying Beneil Dariush wins controversial, questionable decision. It's like, you're his coach. Why would you do
Why
that?
would you say
But no,
that?
I was pissed off.
When your coach or your coach's English social media director, calls your victory questionable, we have ourselves a bad decision.
Well, Johnson missed a lot, but if you actually look at the striking statistics, they both missed a lot. The statistics are almost the same. The only difference is Dariush had 7 takedown attempts, all of which he missed, and Johnson was the one constantly moving forward throughout the fight. I scored at 29-28. Beneil clearly won round 1. Johnson with that power shot and knockdown clearly won round 2 or round 1. Oh wait, I said that all wrong.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, man, you're the
Beneil
most fucked
Dariush
up.
I've been drinking a lot. Beneil Dariush clearly won round 3, and you got to give me credit for the short notice. I only had a 2-hour training camp for this show.
That's true.
So
You're coming on late notice, and we appreciate we appreciate stepping up on it. But here we go. The judges all seemed in agreement on rounds 1 and 3, and I think everyone does. It was clearly a knockdown by Johnson, so we'll give him 1. Michael Johnson didn't land a punch for a good 3.5-minute stretch of round 3.
yeah, I agree. He lost it.
He lost his speed, and just like that half second coming off his punches made him miss the range. And Benny picked up on it, and was quick to actually land his counter game. Round 2 is where it gets tricky. I really thought round 2 was kind of MJ kind of cruising.
But he's still the one coming forward. He's still landing the most significant shots. I mean, Dariush finally adapted. That's one thing I tweeted out, is that Dariush did adapt. His game plan clearly wasn't working, and he came up with a new game plan. It actually looked a lot better, despite his original game plan not coming together. But either way, Johnson's the one coming forward. He's landing the bigger shots. It's his will being done. Beneil did not want to be in that situation until round 3, when he actually figured it out, and Johnson clearly had slowed and his speed was gone, and just swinging at oxygen, beating the piss out of the oxygen around Beneil Dariush.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it upsets me.
Yeah. So moving forward for these guys, does MJ does Johnson take a big hit here?
I don't think he takes a big hit. I don't know who he fights. Maybe give him Evan Dunham. Evan Dunham's coming off a win. That's a good bounce back fight. He's never going to be a top contender, and people still view him as legit. I could get around that fight. That's a legit takedown threat too. He just did against Ross Pearson.
I'm a huge believer in 155 so competitive. You could just run 3 quick wins on some high level people, and you're right back in the talk, if not in a title eliminating fight.
Well, that's what's fun. We were just talking a second ago about 205 is dead. It's because there's only about 6 or 7 guys you can take serious in the title picture. At 155 and 45, your top 10 really varies on what month it is of the year. Whoever's fighting recently.
Yeah, whoever needs a good push in the rankings for when they lose to a high level opponent as well. You can steal all those 12 to 8 spots depending. So 155-pound division, Dariush, I think he was floating around 12, something around there. Guy's only lost 1 fight, I think.
But it was to Ramsey Nijum by TKO, so you can't be very happy with that.
There's some weird ones. Michael Johnson lost to Paul Sass, got Sass-singled. So,
It happens to the best of us. We all can't be Danny Castillo. Speaking of which, I miss Paul Sass. I wish he signed with Bellator like 3 years ago and hasn't done anything. Love to see him versus Marcin Held at 155. That'd be awesome.
You got to train new setups for the Sass-single. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He
actually hates that name.
You gotta land that move. So you got to work on a lot of different setups to get a guy. Those 4 or 5 that you had in the pocket, the tape's out on those.
I agree.
Yeah. So Michael Johnson, took a small hit, but I think he'll move on, probably do fine in the 155-pound division. Dariush floats up to that 10-9 spot. I think he has some good matchups in the future for him, but I think that this fight might have really kind of exposed him as a guy who might not be able to contend with the top of the division until he really, takes the time and secures that striking.
I actually, see, like I said, I had a great night, especially on my podcast, Cage Catch with Joey Gardner. I gave a lot of great breakdowns, won a lot of money despite some bad decisions. On the podcast, I said Benil wouldn't get takedowns, and I expected that to be his complete downfall. I thought it would be detrimental to his fight, and to much to, what I always call the most important championship quality is the ability to adapt and overcome. And clearly, his game plan was not working, and so he adapted, and it may have been bad, but he overcame. Even if the correct score had happened and MJ had still won, I'm still impressed with Beneil Dariush. He did it. He adapted. I was not overcame, but he sure got close. He beat Johnson in his own game in the third round. But I don't. See, even talking about it, I get upset. It's such bullshit. That's the worst part about gambling MMA.
Yeah,
Fucking judges. When Saul D'Amato is the smartest guy in the room, we have problems, people. There needs to be. It has to get fixed. There has to be judges college, or I don't know, something.
You could literally pick out people on my Twitter feed who are just my friends on Twitter who could do a better job judging most of these fights.
Well, I think a big part of it is the fact that we're sitting at home in our comfy chairs, and half my friends are at Twitter or on Twitter are at the fights right now, along with you. They're live, so we'll see how they scored it. But all of them scored it for Michael Johnson, so I can't say that. But we're watching it on TV. We're relaxed. We have the best.
They were all
angle.
belligerent drunks. I don't trust a single one of them to be a judge of anything. Imagine at California MMA Dougie out there.
Oh, Dougie.
24-ounce Miller Lite in one hand, smoking a vape pen, in between rounds underneath the desk, hoping that the cameras don't catch him.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Definitely. Yeah, he should never score an MMA event ever. But no, in all seriousness, the judging is terrible, and there's a serious problem right now in MMA. I don't mind that there's bad judging done. I hate that there's no review process for bad judging. There's no public reasoning submitted. I mean, if I ran a state commission, there would be an action meeting after every single event where I would pull together my entire staff, not just my judges, my referees, the timekeepers, the guy who claps the two boards together to say there's 10 seconds left. And if any of those people fucked up in any way, you'd sit in front of the meeting with everyone and go, hey, in that third fight, you fucked up the second round scoring of that. That was a clear 10-9. Did everyone else have that at 10-9? Why did you score it to the other guy? Account for yourself. There may be good explanations. And not only that, I'm not saying that even judges are beyond having, an off round. You score enough MMA after a while, you're gonna fuck up a round or two.
I think you're giving too much credit to the combat sports judicial system. They really are not good, and you're expecting too much. The accountability isn't there. I mean, judging is the worst aspect of the whole sport. I mean, when people say we're mainstream, MMA is still the Wild West. I mean, you look at World Series of Fighting, Ali Abdelaziz is managing Marlon Moraes, paying him $140,000, and then taking 10% of that back for himself. There's no Ali law. There's no, in boxing where the managers can't do that. It's the Wild West still. Anything goes, and judges have no accountability whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, you touched on a lot of things there, but I do want to mention that after attending a WSOF event, do you only then fully realize just how rookie league this entire as bad as the presentation is on television, when you see it live, that's when you're absolutely like, oh wait, this is really tier 3 MMA.
I've had friends on Media Row who watched Ali Abdelaziz swearing out the guys on the prelim cast because they ordered the worst router or the worst internet, and that's back when WSOF, the prelims, wouldn't stream for anybody. And he's like, we're getting destroyed on Twitter right now. You got to fix this. Like it's $5,000. He's like, here's a credit card. I don't care. Like, fix it. It's like, I've heard he's kind of a dick behind the scenes, but I know they've improved. I used to rip on him a lot, and it used to be terrible. I always play the WSOF drinking game. Follow me and Cage Cash on Twitter. Play the WSOF drinking game. It's worth it. You get drunk.
Well, yeah, if it involves any rules with Bas Rutten speaking improperly, then you will 100% be drunk on any.
Kenny Rice is worse. He's the worst.
There's a level of expectation with with Bas that you expect him to just say off the cuff weird dumb stories that have nothing to do with what's going on at all, but in Bas land it all kind of makes sense.
Bas is that autistic kid on the basketball team that scored 4 baskets that one time, and so he's a legend, and so anything he does from now on is okay. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, that's a way to say it, I guess. But Kenny Rice is a pro. He's there to do the pro job. You know what I
My
mean?
favorite moment is when Ben Askren owned him. I hate Kenny Rice. I really do. That might be a bold statement. I don't hate anybody. I dislike Kenny Rice.
Ben Askren didn't even have to really own Kenny Rice so bad. He was just like speaking like a normal person being interviewed who kind of had someone ask him a question and then in the middle of answering it, the guy went crazy. Like all he had to do was react and be like, "You're a dumbass," and everyone was like, "Yeah, well, yeah, that's about that." Yeah, there you go. Good work, Ben.
The
Not a
tools
hard
of
thing to.
logic and reason.
Yeah, it's not a hard thing to burn. Kenny, poor Kenny. Some other shit happened on the main card. Derek Brunson knocked Smile and Sam Alvey out. Questionable stoppage in your mind?
No, I'm different than most people. Back a few years ago, yeah, I would have said, "Hey, he's not knocked the fuck out. Why are you stopping the fight?" Excuse me, preemptively. All right, I'm back. Yeah, Sam Alvey has a cast iron chin. That's Dan Hendo, Fabio Maldonado, Mark Hunt level. That's Derek Brunson hit him with some shit, and not only some shit, some repetitive shit, back to back to back. That's what knocks people out. People don't. It's usually the second punch that puts you down. And Derek Brunson rolled him with a bunch, and he stayed up till eventually he went down. And I have no problem with that. This is not a blood sport, as people like to call it. There are rules, there are sanctions, and in my opinion, the moment you're in danger, the referee is allowed to stop it. We can complain. If I have money on it, I'll probably complain more than normal. But I was on Derek Brunson, so I don't care. I would have bet on that fight. But Sam Alvey has an iron chin, but when you're in that position, a stoppage is okay.
I'm going to go with this. One, this is blood sport. Two, MMA encourages people to break the rules and regulations. So when we say there's rules in MMA, I always go, well, there's like mere suggestions in MMA that everyone's kind of following around with. Yeah, there's some firm ones, and then there's some that are like, if you want to.
I said it was the Wild West. It really is.
But I will say I agree. I he didn't go out completely in this case. Sam Alvey didn't go completely out, but I tend to say, why save him from the additional impending damage that is about to go put him out? Those punches were about to land. He might have not been unconscious, but he was smart enough or in a position to really defend himself from the next three shots that were going to make him unconscious. And sure, could he have grabbed at a leg half-heartedly and then prolonged the damage and taken some more elbows to the temple before a clean shot landed on his chin that put him out completely? Yeah, sure, I guess. And is there a 1% chance that he grabbed that single leg, prevented the damage, and then rallied back to some unbelievable KO? Okay, I'll concede that point. But I am a big fan of any time a fighter is just even kind of not in that state of unconsciousness, but in that la-la land where they're just eyes are glazed over and you can tell they're on autopilot. Even if they're doing something and moving, call that fight. He's not intelligently defending himself if he's on autopilot. And that, I think, is like the words in the rule book is a fighter must be intelligently defending themselves against an opponent, or a judge can call it, or a ref can call it. So I usually err on the side of caution to why have poor Sam Alvey's brains strewn all over the canvas. Other things going on. Amanda Nunes stepped out of nowhere in the 135-pound division by getting the submission over Sarah McMahon. Poor Sarah McMahon kind of fall from lofty heights after her loss to Ronda Rousey and then Miesha Tate and now Amanda Nunes. And Amanda Nunes in a really thin division preparing herself for maybe a title eliminator. Do you think she has it in her to lose to Ronda Rousey in under a minute?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's a finisher, be finished fighter. There's no way she's beating Ronda. And I have
but
to
can't she get to that point? It's not about beating Ronda Rousey. It's about getting to the biggest payday you can in women's combat sports.
Yeah, well, there's nobody left, and so if Betchko Hay can get a title shot, surely anybody can get a title shot. That fight's been so overhyped for what it wasn't. When your opponent's record's 1-7, I mean, she knocked out Betchko Hay. Well, never mind. That is impressive. She knocked her cold in 34 seconds. Not taking that away, but it's not like it was an elite level fighter. That's a side point. most involved, Sarah McMahon. I don't know what the hype really was. I mean, I bought one of my only real loss on the card. I had two losses. One was the robbery for Michael Johnson. I'll call it robbery because that's money out of my pocket. But was the bad or it was Sarah McMahon. I had half a unit, just a little play. Sarah McMahon by decision plus 114 if she could out wrestle her. And I was wrong. Clearly, she could not. But Sarah McMahon, this hype came off of what? She got a title shot off after being Sheila Graf. Whoop-de-doo. Before that, her signature win was Shayna Baszler. So what are we basing this off of? What is
an Olympic medal? That is what we've based.
That's not MMA.
Of course, but I'm just talking about practical business now. What we did was we needed to get Ronda Rousey some challengers, and she fit the bill for the time being. And look what we're at now. We're at a point where Ronda Rousey against Betch Correia does the most pay-per-views in 2015 for the UFC. So it really doesn't fucking matter. She was the stepping stone that the UFC needed at the time.
And that was a terrible pay-per-view. UFC 189 was the best pay-per-view ever. And I don't know. She's a star. She's the thing.
I hear I read a story where 15-year-old girls have Ronda Rousey pay-per-view viewing parties. That's like a thing.
I have no problem with it. It makes Twitter a little worse, but it actually makes the sport a little bigger. So that's good.
Yeah, this is what I always tell people. We need the dummies. We need the WWF fans. We need the 13-year-old Ronda Rousey fans. We just need fucking money in this sport, guys. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be able to see high-level professional people train MMA full-time and watch awesome technique happen. You don't get to see TJ Dillashaw be the 135-pound champion beating the piss out of Henan Barrow in a super entertaining fight unless you have some dummies come to see the rodeo. We need some dummies to come to the rodeo. The
UFC success is everybody's success. It's good for Bellator, good for Titan, good for World Series of Fighting. MMA is that young. We're not. Well, obviously, the gap between UFC and everybody else is drastic. But I'm just saying, any additional fans, the spill does come over, and so there's no reason they can't work together. They counter program each other all the time.
Yeah, I think that the UFC's kind of figured out that the idea of their brand-based model of fighting, while they're still kind of in love with it, they're moving away from, solely that less and less, and they're realizing the importance of stars again. Now they're trying to build stars, of course, within their brand, but, they're not selling UFC anymore. They're selling Conor McGregor and they're selling Ronda Rousey, and, they've kind of forgotten, how this game of combat sports works. You need the stars, and that's what you sell. Mm-hmm. You don't sell the sport.
Perfect example is Glory. They have no stars. Nikki Holtz getting fought yesterday. They probably won't get 250,000 views. Well, maybe a little more, 400,000 at most.
Yeah, well, on free television on Saturday night. You know what I mean? That's a really bad number. When you're talking about there's people willing to buy that amount of a pay-per-view for the UFC that's just mid-range. And I'm sorry, but I consider a DC interim title fight against, Rumble Johnson a mid-range UFC pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
Let's be real. The first fight of the main card was Ray Bork against some clown, and he ground him out. Let me check the notes.
We skipped Rochelle Johnson.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, dude, I made so much money on that one. Johnson fought pretty damn smart. I guess a tough guy, and Rochelle's an idiot.
Guys, I grade each and every individual fight on an A to F system, so that I can give my final grades and I remember how bad each one was. The only fight that got an F, a pure F, in this shit show of a lineup was Jared Rosholt against Timothy Johnson. Fuck that fight 1,000 times.
I loved it because I was winning the whole time up until the last minute, and then I was pissed because Rosholt was looking like an idiot.
You deserve that sweat.
Johnson proved to be a bigger idiot at the end there with the takedown. You had it, man. Thank you for the money. I need to send that guy some change because he earned it for me.
Yeah, definitely. Timmy Johnson. I think Jonathan Snowden put it best when he retweeted one of his interactions. Someone asked him, why did Johnson go for the takedown there? And Snowden replied, because his heart was about to explode.
Johnny and I are good friends. I miss Johnny. We should hang out more.
At any moment, that poor man was going to die. He threw every ounce of energy in his entire being into those last few punches. That was just sloppy as shit, and it's just the perfect representation of like how we've accepted regional class MMA in the UFC heavyweight division, like in that 15 range. It's not even like it's in like, the non-ranked fighters. Like this is like the bottom 15, bottom 20 of the sport.
It's heavyweight. It's always been that way. It's the weakest. It always has been.
What we need is the return of Brandon Vera.
Is ONE FC even using him? I don't even know. All these American fighters go to ONE FC. Where's Ben Askren?
Dude, they're letting Brandon Vera soccer kick the shit out of people on steroids in China. It's fucking unreal. Yeah, he's a superstar in the Philippines, just soccer kicking dudes and fucking doing another cycle. Guy's my hero. I'll be honest. So those heavyweight fucks happened. Ray Borg fought some dude whose name I think is Gene Herrera. But god damn it, like, these people, if you're gonna debut in the UFC, especially on a main card, and I'm gonna have to talk to you about a fight, have a sweet nickname. So I'll just write down your sweet nickname, and then you're all good. Lean Gene.
Guillen. Yes, Guillen Herrera. He was in the RFA. He's actually pretty legit. I had the over in this fight because I knew he wouldn't get submitted. Well, I didn't know. I was hoping he wouldn't get submitted. And by hoping, man, was I sweating. 1.5.
2.5? Oh, 1.5. Oh, well, then you were all good there.
Negative 145. That's value.
I explain to you. That's value, my friend.
Ray Borg is like, that guy's got a bright future.
Ray Borg's king of the grinders. I don't think he has a bright future because I think that there's a level of talent in that division where that game stops working for him, and I don't think he can adapt. Going back to your earlier position on how the best are those who are able to adapt. There's certain people who are going to stuff that takedown game from him, and then I'll class him on the feet.
Mighty Mouse, Benavidez, maybe
Dotson.
Dotson for sure.
Maybe Moraga.
Ortiz possibly.
That's a good matchup.
That's probably going to happen next is Ortiz Moraga. What's the one I'm thinking of right now? Can't think of it.
Not Ortiz. Because you want to fight to die by Ortiz Borg.
Flyweight's awesome. They don't get enough credit.
I like really high-level flyweight. Where does Ali Bagatinov fit in once he comes back from steroids?
Dude, I swear that guy got, the new rules with steroids? Oh, you got steroids, you're out for 2 years. That guy got that suspension back when there were no rules. I don't understand how, where is he? Where's he been? I know he's hanging out with Vitaly Minakov and Fedor Emelianenko, but I don't know what he's doing.
Once you fail steroids, your visa instantly expires.
I don't think that's how that works. If only the world was involved in MMA like we are.
The governor of California, if that were the case. So, flyweight. I guess there's some cool things happening. By the way, I really love the promo for UFC 191. I heard a lot of people shitting on it, but I'm like, you know what? At least it's like a fucking grown-up, like, advertisement that sells two people fighting instead of the normal nonsense we get from the UFC, which is like a new Linkin Park song, a gladiator montage, and fucking, I don't know, Joe Rogan screaming. We still got Joe Rogan screaming, I know, but goddamn it, we got some better music, and there was, there was no, steel cage graphics or anything stupid like that, and there was no Linkin Park. So come on, everything was.
They're in a unique position because obviously DJ is like a GSP figure. He's going to be champ for a while unless Dotson lands a big bomb on him like he did in the first one and actually puts him away, which I don't see. DJ's that amazing, but he doesn't sell. And they continue to put him on pay-per-view, which they can't do. And they put him on Fox and he doesn't draw, so they can't do that. And they can't put a title fight on Fox Sports 1. So what do you really do with him? And it's not his fault. He is that good. I find him extremely entertaining. He's one of my very favorite fighters. But when he doesn't sell, the public doesn't take to him. He's in a very shitty spot.
Yeah, I kind of like him. I think that they could probably, push a couple more dollars behind him, but I see where they're at. I just don't think, honestly, that the 125-pound champion of the world is ever going to be a huge, mainstream success unless you have a very, very, very special character.
It has to be a Conor McGregor knockout guy. It has to be something like that.
Yeah, and that's really hard at that size. So, I'll take, weird, nerdy family dude from Seattle who fights MMA perfectly. That's a cool guy to have as a champion for the 125-pound division. I'm betting that just because of the amount of times they put him on pay-per-views, that he has some sort of contractual stipulation that he's on a certain amount of pay-per-views, and he probably doesn't sell enough for it to kick in that he has to actually pay extra dollars on the pay-per-view buys. So, the UFC doesn't mind probably taking a tax write-off and a loss on, an occasional pay-per-view. They got some fancy accountants out there, and DJ is happy to show up and make his 200,000 flat. And the hardcores, buy it, 100,000 pay-per-views sold. That's still some good money in the UFC's pocket. That's like $3 million in revenue right there.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So.
That all started with Ray Borg.
Yeah. Listen, tangents abound when you add alcohol and a freeform show.
And like I messaged you earlier, alcohol and MMA go together so well.
So well, because honestly, no one wants to talk about that Ray Borg fight for more than like 2 minutes. As evident in when I gave us the opportunity to talk about it for more than 2 minutes, we got about 30 seconds in until we were like, "Hey, DJ, and Ali Bagatinov, what do you think he is?" All right. Anything else happened on the preliminary part of this fight that interests you? Because scanning over my list here, I'm looking at abysmal grades. We had Uriah Hall knock some poor dude out.
I had a lot of people saying that he was a dangerous guy, and I watched tape. And dude, Bambo, oh, that was you. I remember you and I were on Twitter. I was like, when I first saw this fight, I was like, Bambose's name looks like something you typed random letters into a keyboard and hit send. And you came on. I was like, oh, he's a pretty dangerous guy. I looked him up. He does look scary, and his nickname is terrifying, Holy War Angel. Like, that's got some meaning to it. But I watch his fights, and he's slow. Well, not slow. He just has an explosion. But he's short range. He's a boxer. He's thrown one kick in 5 fights, and he's never fought anybody with more than 5 fights. And only 2 of them have winning records. I mean, his big highlight reel win is over a guy who's 1-4 and retired. So I basically thought, oh, Uriah Hall fights long, so he's not going to get hit. Bambosi doesn't wrestle, so he's not going to get taken down. How can he lose? And so he was actually my big parlay today. I liked Uriah Hall today.
Yeah, Hall proved clearly in the fight that he was up to the task. I really feel like Bambosa didn't have a good chance to implement his game because he slipped so early, and that he looked all right kind of on his feet. He was doing those little front kicks to the kneecap and everything, but once he was on his back, it was kind of like complete fish out of water nonsense.
He did land one big right hand at the very beginning of the fight that Uriah felt. I know that. Besides that, he did nothing.
And Uriah Hall has that habit of kind of fighting to his opponent's level, and
their strength.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know what's going on there, if that's a mental block or just some sort of like hyper arrogance coming through. But I guess at those odds and on a half a unit, it was worth it for me to just kind of throw it out there. Just more of a, is Uriah Hall going to fuck this one up again?
I was told that I told everybody I was betting on Uriah, and I got the whole speech from everybody about you can't put your money on Uriah, and I was like, well, this time you can, and you could.
It's a dangerous, it's a fickle one to master, Uriah Hall and betting on him. It seems like you have to catch the wave of either or, Dude,
it's like heroin. I can't stop. I have my good days, I have my bad days, but it still feels good sometimes.
Yeah. Some other fights on the undercard: Tom Watson against Chris Camozzi, abysmal fight. I don't really want to talk about.
Hit the over. That was nice.
Good. Yeah, congratulations.
2 nut shots. That helped.
Every single person watching that fight was not happy you hit your over. We just wanted it to end. That's it. Dustin Ortiz beat poor Willie Gates, who Willie Gates.
I had a hard time feeding those chitlins.
Yeah. And poor Willie Gates has his 6 kids mentioned every single time he fights. No one else has the amount of kids that they've had put on blast for the entire world. It's like, as soon as he gets introduced, they're like, and here's Willie Gates. The man has made many, many mistakes in his life. He is a poor life decision maker here.
Not mistakes, surprises. They're surprises.
Yeah.
Everybody loves surprises.
They're a bundle of joy. You were given a gift. Yeah, poor Willie Gates and his 6 kids, and John Anik loves shouting it out like no one does. It's somewhat racist. It's almost like, look at this dumb black dude who couldn't stop having children. Let's all remark upon it. You know, pause in this broadcast on FS1, the most racist sports network in the world, and let's remark upon the black man's many children.
Other than that, Ortiz looked good. I liked Ortiz today.
On a separate topic, Ortiz did look good. You know, Ortiz looks like one of those dudes who can float around from like 10 to 7, depending on if he won one against someone out of the or below 10, or if he lost one to some guy above 5. Yeah. So that's about that on poor Ortiz. Talented guy, but never gonna probably go anywhere. Frankie Saenz against whoever this dude was. It was a really good scrap, but just kind of filtered off into nothing. Jonathan Wilson, a guy from Explode Fight Series, a fight promotion that's been under siege really in the MMA media circles from people questioning kind of the fighters' records in their squash matches that they put on. But Jonathan Wilson lived up to that hype, knocking out the UFC's best 205 can in Clint Dempsey. Do you like Johnny Bravo here, or is this just a case of Dempsey not being UFC caliber?
To be completely honest, I didn't even get a shit about these Fight Pass prelims. They were playing in the background, and so I saw the replay. I didn't see it live or anything that happened before it. I wait till I hear an announcer go, "Oh," which they don't go "oh" anymore. They don't. These announcers do a terrible job of hyping the fight to a casual fan. When the announcer's excited, they get excited, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's landed a right hand, and he's just beating the shit out of him. Oh, he missed with that." Kenny Florian is the worst. Oh, he missed with that flying knee directly to the chin. Oh, there's an elbow that just nearly grazed his forehead as blood dripples down. He's just the absolute worst. But no, it's not bad. I mean, beating Chris Dempsey is okay, I guess. I mean, Eddie Truck Gordon, sad. That's about it. He's like, that guy did that to me.
Yeah. Poor Truck Gordon. I thought that this was basically, the UFC's best can out there, and Wilson seemed to be able to crush it. He probably won't, live up to much else in the 205 division. So I look forward to fading him. And I'll completely wholeheartedly agree with you, Ken Florian. I really like John Anik a lot, and I'd probably like to replace John Anik, or replace Goldie with the John Anik. And but Ken Flo could definitely stand to take a note or two from both Brian Stan and Joe Rogan, especially more the Joe Rogan side. He needs to get he needs to get on testosterone replacement therapy treatment. He needs to smoke more marijuana. Get in the isolation tank. Really cultivate his inner Joe Rogan so that he could start screaming like a maniac on these broadcasts.
I used to be a huge Joe Rogan fan, and now I can't do it anymore. I like everything else he does. Love his stand-up comedy. Love his his podcast and stuff.
But you don't like him on the mic at all.
I don't like him commentating the MMA. He's way off base. He's biased. He's just doesn't do a good job. My favorite's Jimmy Smith. I liked Sean Wheelock as a company man. He's gone now. I've seen one show, this new guy. I don't even know his name, and I wasn't impressed. So it sucks that Jimmy has that to work with. But yeah, I think Jimmy's the best. He probably will end up in the UFC someday if Bellator doesn't give him a raise. Because I know Joe Rogan's tried to get him in the UFC. But I like Brian Stan. Dominic Cruz does a good job, but he hasn't done it for the UFC. He's done it for some smaller promotions. But I don't know. It's not that hard. I don't see how there's this many people who love this sport, and people like, well, Kenny Florian's a veteran, so you got to give him a job. But how does Karen Bryant have a job? How do these people get to this position?
She can't be spoken about on my show.
It's affirmative action, I say.
No. Karen Bryant is the worst thing that's happened in the broadcast, side of this sport ever. Just absolutely terrible. You can have my stuttering ass out there. I'll read the teleprompter like a monk. You get me sober. You get me not smoking weed for like at least 3 hours before I go on air. I'm gonna crush the shit out of that teleprompter girl with style, please. So fuck her 1,000 times. Ken Flo, I don't mind Ken Flo in the studio as like a support character, but I don't like him, behind the desk. I think you really want to have Brian Stan and John Anik being your B team if we have to endure Goldie, who is atrocious. Joe Rogan, I don't think that he's unbiased so much as he's just got away for like a long, long time with the, this choke is tight, He's out before, and I get why sometimes it happens to him. He really does watch the fights like live with his eyeballs, and you're just not in the best position to see things. Whereas I'm looking at a screen that's as if my seat in the arena was like, moving and hovering in the optimal angle of exactly where I should be. It's like almost as if having 1,000 cameras on one thing and then looking at the best shot any of those cameras have of the event would be the optimal way to watch it, rather than just like staring. And half the time you could be just staring at a dude's back. They're on the ground on the other side of the cage, and all he's looking at is a dude lying in his back. Take a glance at that monitor, Joe, and you'll get a little bit more detail. That hand is not even connected. That guillotine choke is no way tight. He's going to escape as soon as you say that's in tight. We all know
every time. And I'll touch on Kenny Florian. He's just waiting for the day the UFC opens the runner-up category in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. I used to love Ken.
Greatest fighter from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
There it is. But yeah, poor Boston's fighting legacy is Ken Flo and Joe Lozon.
I used to love Ken Flo, but then he started talking. And now it's like...
Then you're like, poor Kenny. Oh, I didn't know it was
Kenny,
that.
God.
Oh, jeez, man. Ken, you're disappointing us all, man. Ken Flo, I'd like to see him out of the rotation. Love to see Jimmy Smith one day, commentate a bigger stage in some of these bigger fights. I'd actually like optimally to have John Anik, Joe Rogan, and Brian Stan in a three-way commentary booth. I think that having Brian Stan there would keep Joe Rogan on top of his shit, and Brian Stan would have no problem being like, "No, Joe, that choke's nowhere near being finished. I'm looking at it directly on the monitor now." And we could eliminate all the stupid awkwardness that is Goldie.
Yeah, I don't get it. There's better company men out there. It's not that hard. Your job is to read the teleprompter and agree with what the fight guy says, and he's just not good at either. And I don't know about three man. They always talk over each other. It's difficult.
Nah, because Brian and Joe would find their happy medium. Because you need Joe there to be crazy. You need Joe to be crazy. Like I said, this is a fucking freak show. This is the circus coming to town, and we need the carnival barker out there, and that's Joe Rogan. I'll talk about the first fight that happened on the prelims, which was, Jesus Christ, Anthony Christodoulou, this Greek dude. And good God, may he never fight in the UFC again.
Oh, he will.
Against CM Punk, he won. He's.
That's the guy. You just blew my mind. Oh my gosh! I don't even know how to talk right now. I've been sitting here and calculating for months who they're gonna put him against. Who can he fight? He can't beat anybody. There's nobody he can beat. This is it.
Grooming him, bro.
He's gonna go up a weight class. He's already fat enough. Just have a couple extra cheeseburgers, and then that's it. You should have Joe Silva's job.
I'm applying for the position now. It's on UFC.com, I imagine. But this poor guy, Scott Holtzman, I think he was a Tennessee guy, super athlete his whole life. They kept talking about how he was in this athletic sport, then this sport, then this sport, then found MMA, had all these amateur fights, da-da-da-da. And then Anthony Christodoulou comes out, and they're like, he was once a fat guy, and then he got less fat, and then he's here. So
there he is.
And he's
our buddies on Twitter said that Holtzman probably had about 2,000 tickets sold just for him. There was a bunch of people wearing his shirt and jumping up and down and screaming for him. So for being the first fight on Fight Pass, even for a local guy, 2,000 tickets is a lot. I mean, those Bellator guys are paid to sell 200-300 tickets. It's like 2,000 tickets in a whole arena. That's like what, an eighth of the amount of people there?
It doesn't matter because 2,000 tickets times $50 a pop, even if they're buying the cheap sheets, that's $100,000. That's great revenue. That's why you get the Christodoulou treatment, and you get to smoke some poor Greek fatty. You know what I mean? And by the way, they mentioned, and this is an offhanded comment that Anik threw out there, he said, at his worst, Christodoulou went up to weight of 225 pounds. The guy's 5'9". That's not very fat. If you're 225 pounds at 5'9", it's like, yeah, like you're 50 pounds overweight.
You're just
Like
an American in Greece, you know.
just a normal dude. You didn't
Over
even
in
have like
Greece, they're all like, "Look at that guy."
you couldn't even make it on The Biggest Loser with that.
Yeah,
That's there's not a lot of weight to be lost there. He probably was in the cage at 170. That was like a guy lost 50 pounds. It's like, yeah, you're MMA training. I hope you lost 50 pounds. Jesus Christ, dude.
there's a few people who could lose some weight that I don't know how they haven't.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. It's
Roy
amazing.
Nelson.
Some super professional athletes are able to carry the belly. If you think about other sports, like think about football. There's all those dudes who are like, like Vince Wilfork, famous defensive tackle for the New England Patriots. Enormous athlete or fantastic athlete, can do a backflip. Has at least 100 pounds sitting on his gut. So who knows? Sean Jordan in MMA heavyweight, always pudgy.
That's true.
I think I saw
I
him
think
do a
heavyweight
backflip too.
category though.
Yeah, when you're talking 155 and you got the pudge, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, Krylov was pulling off the pudge at heavyweight. He weighed in at heavyweight one time at like 209.
Yeah.
He weighed in at a heavyweight fight in the UFC. He got on the scale at 209 pounds.
Didn't he win that fight?
I think so.
I think he did. I'm
Which
trying to remember.
the legend of Nikita Krylov continues.
I've won some big money on him before. One time I had Nikita Krylov by submission parlay with. Oh no, I had Nikita Krylov at like plus 400 parlayed with Bruce Leroy by submission against who was that? I think it was Little Pettis. But either way, so no, I had him at submission of the night for Bruce Leroy because I thought he'd be the only one on the card, and he was. And that's probably one of the most money I ever made on a single play. And so I'll always remember Nikita Krylov.
No one thought he was even going to win that fight. Never mind.
No, everybody made fun of him. I was like, he's not that bad. It was, his first fight was Soa Palele. That's right. He lost that fight.
Oh, yeah, poor yeah. Well,
I just remembered.
Think about the epic mismatch that is a dude who walked on the scale at 209 against that fucking guy who has to cut to 270. Yeah.
275.
Easily walks in the cage on the 280, Eats a whole Samoan pig, for dinner that night, and then goes in there, the digestive dump hits him in the, second round or so, and he can't make it. Yeah. Nikita Krylov for, the next light heavyweight title shot is how I'm going to close that segment. All right, let's talk about the entire fight card, and let's put a bow on this show. The whole thing, A to F. Where do you grade it?
I'm a little more positive than most. I'm going to say B minus, C plus. I wasn't disgusted. I mean, the only disgusting part was Michael Johnson.
Michael Johnson was the disgusting part?
When he lost.
It was the highlight of the whole night. It was the only redeeming fight I thought of.
The main event. And Derek Brunson was good. I guess because I kept winning money. That's why it's fun for me.
I guess so. You're seeing it through the lens of your bank account grow. Always.
That's right. If I lost money, this would be a C minus to a D plus. It wasn't great. It's not that terrible though. It's not.
Let me tell you, for the people who lost money this event, this was a bad fight card, and you deserved your time back. This was a solid. The best grade you can give this fight is a D plus, maybe a C minus. We had some redeeming fights at the end, and the main card wasn't actually so bad. It probably had like a C average overall, but there was just things in the middle of that card that were just complete clunkers. Thank God for Michael Johnson against Benel Dariush at the end. Thank God that the main event had at least a semi-competitive first round and ended in a finish. If that had gone to the fifth round, I would have not been on this program because I would have canceled this show and quit MMA forever.
Amanda Nunes the card is the main event always. People's last impression.
Yep, that is a good way to
maybe that's
remember.
why I'm so positive. It's
it wasn't it was an amazing finish. It just kind of ended in a whimper of OSP quitting.
It wasn't even a good fight. It was average.
It was an average fight, man.
Yeah.
Watching Amanda Nunes choke out, Sarah McMahon, that kept me alive too. That definitely gave me a pep in the step when I needed it. Thanks to Rochelle and this other fucking clown, Johnson, for destroying any goodwill that fight built. But anyway, my grade for the card is a solid D plus. If someone wants to be really upset with me, you can hit me up on Twitter at any time, and I'll defend that score. All right, Nate, let's say goodnight to the people. I'll give you an opportunity to plug anything that you're doing and anything that you're up to right now.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Nate Miller MMA. You can also follow my podcast, Cage Cash, at Cage Cash. It's an auto follow back podcast. You follow it, it'll follow you back. Also, make sure to follow my co-host Joey G Sports. He's an awesome guy, and check out the show. It's sponsored by Radio Influence and Gamble Pro Sheets. It's a good time. It's funny, informative, and we win money. So the name is appropriate. Cage Cash. Don't forget.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Before the Bald Man Speaks. I'd like to thank my guest, Nate Miller from Cage Cash, for coming on. A quick shout-out to the whole MMA analysis crew out in Nashville, Tennessee, watching that boring-ass card. At least you guys had each other to kind of get through it, and I'm sure that you found something to keep track of your time. As always, I'm Andrew Lawrence. This is Before the Bald Man Speaks. You can always get at me at The Clown Kid on Twitter. You get it at the. Please go on this on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Subscribers helps keep this channel alive. So thank you for watching, and see you next week. Oh, there is no card next week. I don't think there's a card for 2 weeks. So please go out, have a life. Find a girlfriend, or at least someone that will be reasonably close to you physically and tolerate your presence. Try and enjoy the outside world while you have a free Saturday. I'll catch you on the 23rd for Fight Night, something with some other dumb people in a card that won't be that good. Like I always say, peace out. Have a good one.